children! Already this season, we have taken a look at a direct adaptation of Dracula. But how about one for his rival and counterpart? For those unfamiliar with the original novel, it is all told in flashback, a story written down by a sea captain named Roger Walton traveling through the Arctic until he came upon the near-dead body of Victor Frankenstein. Frankenstein tells Walton of his life and why he was in the Arctic, of the terrible things he created, on the price he has paid for it all. He tells of his early life and childhood, of the kind, educated maid, of his best friend, Henry Clerval, of Elizabeth, his cousin whom he fell in love with. Such things were more common and not quite as icky as we find today, my children. And he tells of his budding interest in natural science, and how the death of his mother helped spur him into studying the mysteries of life and death. As he studied at college, learning more about chemistry and anatomy and science, he desecrated tombs and performed hideous experiments to learn more and more about life and death. And his final grand experiment, to bring a dead body back to life. He succeeded in creating this thing, but upon looking at the thing he had spawned, he immediately rejected it, viewing it as a monster. He fled, collapsing in the streets thanks to his waning health. Time passed, and the monster vanished, and as Frankenstein's health returned, he eventually learned that his little brother, William, had been killed, and the maid accused of his murder. There was nothing to be done to save the poor maid. The evidence stacked against her, and so she was hung. Victor suspected that his creation, his monster, was somehow responsible for this. And he was correct, for the monster came to him and admitted his crimes. But the monster says that he is only what his creator made of him. From the moment he opened his eyes and looked upon Victor Frankenstein, he has been met with hatred and fear. And so hatred and fear are all he has ever known. In the hopes of inspiring some pity from the one he calls his father, he tells of what happened to him after Victor rejected him. So we have a sea captain narrating a story about Victor, narrating a story about the monster, narrating a story. Everywhere the monster traveled, he was met with disgust at his appearance. He found some solace alone in the woods, but he craved companionship, eventually locating a kind family living in a nearby cabin. He watched them from afar, learning language and hoping to eventually come to them as a friend and be accepted. His plan was to approach slowly, first with the blind grandfather. But the unexpected arrival of the rest, once again seeing him as a monster, forced him out and once more into rejection. After the encounter with young William that got him to murder the boy, over insults and his familial connection to Frankenstein, he framed the maid for the deed, and to help show Victor one thing: he will destroy everything Victor loves. But not if he does as he requests. He wants Victor to build for him a mate, a companion like himself, so that he may not be alone. After that, they will flee far away and leave humanity to itself. Victor does as instructed, at first, but eventually decides to destroy the mate before it can come to life, fearing unleashing another monster into the world. The monster murders Elizabeth in retaliation, and so Frankenstein spends the rest of his life hunting the monster, chasing him all the way to the Arctic, where Captain Walton found him. And after Victor finishes his story, he succumbs to a sleep that he never awoke from. The monster comes to look upon his dead creator one last time, despite threats from Captain Walton, but he reassures him that his evil is done. Frankenstein was his last victim, and there is no greater revenge against the monster than letting him live in pain and loneliness. While more stylized than the complete Dracula, this dark graphic novel lives up to its name, and the legacy left by Mary Shelley.